Chapter 44, Wolves Howl, Cats Meow. Jon woke up with sweat running down his back. He could taste the iron in his mouth, a sure sign that Ghost had fed. That meant his dream was real, and Ghost could be in trouble. He quickly grabbed the egg and returned it to its hiding place, then dressed in a hurry. Picking up his sword, he dashed out the door. As he raced through the corridors, he noticed that people were already up and about, which meant he had slept later than usual. It didn't bother him, but it did mean he had to dodge more people than he would have liked. "Jon, where are you going?" Arya called as he ran past her. "I need to go, little wolf. Ghost needs me," he shouted back, not turning as she hurried after him. He sprinted from the keep, across the courtyard, and toward the stables. He didn't even bother to saddle Winter. He simply attached her reins and led her out before jumping onto her back. In the distance, he spotted Jaime and Loras running toward him, Arya with them. He smiled, grateful that she was worried about him, but his mind was focused on Ghost. Closing his eyes, he urged Winter to run. He passed a clearly annoyed Loras and a disturbed Jaime, shouting over his shoulder, "Ghost, the wolfswood, follow." As they exited through the south gate, Winter picked up speed, and Jon let her guide him. He pictured where Ghost might be and what the surroundings looked like, hoping his wolf had received the message. The wind whipped through his hair, blowing it behind him, and whatever remnants of sleep he had were quickly forgotten as they entered the wolfswood. Branches brushed against his chest and sides, some even scratching his face, but he never slowed down. One thought consumed him: I must get to him. He had no idea how long he rode, but Winter never faltered. Eventually, they came to a small stream, and there, he spotted Ghost's white fur as his wolf drank the cool water. Jon jumped from his mare and led her toward Ghost. He led her to the water, allowing her to quench her thirst before he walked over to Ghost. Just as he reached out his hand, he heard a low growl from behind him. Turning around, he saw a gray wolf, even larger than Ghost, though it was clear she hadn't been feeding well. He looked into her eyes and reached out with his mind, knocking on the door of her consciousness. The wolf didn't exactly let him in, nor did she push him away. Instead, it felt like she was making a compromise. She would listen and follow, but he was not her alpha and never would be. He reached out and touched her, rubbing her neck, and felt her relax. Glancing around, he noticed the carcass of a stag nearby and saw that there was still meat on the bones. He walked over, cut some off with his knife, and fed it to the wolf, who ate greedily. Just then, Ghost came over and licked his hand. "Jon, are you there?" A voice called out. "Jon," it said louder. The wolf growled, and he leaned forward, looking into her eyes until she calmed a bit. "Over here, come slowly," Jon said, nodding at the wolf. Before long, he was joined by Jaime, Loras, Jors, Allers, and surprisingly, his uncle. None of them looked happy. Jon sighed at the sight of his uncle. He had yet to explain his abilities as a warg, and now he had to figure out how to justify why he had raced from Winterfell. "Are you all right, Jon?" Loras asked, concern evident in his voice. I'm fine," Jon replied, forcing a smile. "Jon, your face, your lip," Loras said, reaching out to touch the cut on his lip. "It's nothing, Loras, really," Jon assured him, and Loras nodded. "Jon, why did you run off like that?" his uncle asked, a hint of concern in his expression. "I felt Ghost was in trouble, Lord Stark. I needed to find him, just in case." "Felt? How did you know he was in the wolfswood?" his uncle asked, curiosity flickering in his eyes. "I just did, Lord Stark. It's hard to explain." "Whose wolf is that, Jon?" Jaime asked. Jon felt relieved that Jaime was holding back the inevitable, and more than justified, scolding he was sure was coming. I think it's Ghost's mother, my lord." "His mother?" I believe she's about to deliver a litter." "We need to take her back with us," Jon said, reaching out to pat the wolf gently. Jon, we can't. Ghost is one thing, but this, she's wild, Jon. It's much too dangerous, his uncle cautioned. No, it's not, Lord Stark. She'll be fine, I swear it on the old gods and the new. We can make a space for her in the broken tower and keep her locked up. I'll look after her until she delivers the pups. Jon looked pleadingly at his uncle. Fine, but she and the pups are your responsibility, Jon. I'll be placing guards around the tower, and I won't have my children near her. You understand? None of them, Jon. Thanks, my lord. I promise to follow your lead, Jon replied, then walked over to Winter. He looked at Ghost and his mother, nodded, and after Ghost glanced at the other wolf, both began to follow him. He chose to walk out of the wolf's wood instead of riding, giving Winter more time to rest. Once they reached the outside, he mounted his mare, and they slowly began their journey back to Winterfell, both wolves flanking him as they rode. When they arrived at the gates, he heard hushed whispers and laughter from the guards and servants. He's got another one. I can't believe it. 2 dire wolves. It's a sign from the gods. After they reached the courtyard, Jon dismounted and looked to Jors, asking him to stable Winter. He crossed the yard and spotted Jojen and Mira with his sisters. As they moved toward him, he shook his head. I'll talk to you all in a moment. I need to put her in a safe place, he said, heading toward the broken tower. The tower was still unused, and despite its name, it wouldn't take much to fix it up. Jon wondered if there was an actual reason for its neglect. Jon pondered why no one had attempted to rescue the wild wolf before. Was it simply a matter of money? Or had his uncle left it for someone else to deal with, as he had done with so many other problems? It didn't really matter to Jon, though. He had his own reasons for needing the wolf. Just then, Walder joined him, helping to push open the heavy door. Inside, furniture was piled high, and together with Loras, they began to clear the space. Walder's giant frame moved 3 times the amount that Jon and Loras could manage combined. After a while, they created a warm area, where Loras found an old mattress and some bedding. They arranged it into a comfortable spot for the wolf, who gratefully settled down. Jon hurried off to fetch some water and food for her. When he returned and placed the food down, she licked his hand, showing her appreciation. Outside, Ghost stood guard, ensuring no one entered. After a few moments, Jon let Ghost inside, where she took her place beside her mother as she slept. They locked the door, leaving the 2 wolves to rest undisturbed. Whose wolf is that? Can I have it? Jon heard Arya call out as she and Sansa approached him. It's Ghost's mother. I don't think she'll let anyone take her, Jon replied, trying to suppress a laugh at the annoyed expression on Arya's face. Is that where you went? And what happened to your face, Jon? Sansa asked, concern evident in her voice. I needed to find him. Sorry if I scared you. As for my face, I just had a run-in with some branches. It's nothing, he said, smiling reassuringly at her. Where did Lord Jaime go? He and father walked off towards the keep, Sansa answered. So, what do you 2 want to do? Loras is off to pray, so it's just the 3 of us. Let's spar. Arya suggested eagerly. Can we sit in the glass garden instead? You could teach me to draw, Sansa added. Draw? That's stupid. Why are you so stupid? Arya shot back, frowning at her sister. Arya, your sister's not stupid, Jon interjected. I draw. Wouldn't you like to learn? You could draw pictures of Ghost, or Winter, or even the kind of bow you'd like. Really? Arya asked, her curiosity piqued. Really? But first, you need to say sorry to your sister, Jon said. Sorry, Sansa, she replied quickly before running off toward the glass gardens. Thank you, Sansa said, and Jon smiled at her as they walked in the same direction as Arya, while Loras headed off in the opposite direction. Jaime felt torn. He wanted to talk to Jon about his busted lip and the fact that he had raced off without protection, but he also needed to speak with Ned Stark about the injury. He knew how Jon had gotten hurt, despite Jon's insistence that it was nothing. Jaime was furious about what had happened with his uncle. Unfortunately, before he could discuss it with Jon, the decision of whom to speak to was taken out of his hands. "Lord Jaime, may we speak in private?" Ned Stark asked as Jon and Loras went to set up the wolf's den. "I, Lord Stark, lead the way," Jaime replied. He followed the Lord of Winterfell back toward the keep, up the stairs, and directly into the man's solar. Taking a seat, he waited and was surprised when Ned ordered some refreshments. The mention of warm cider pleased him. For a while, the two men sat in silence. When the servant entered with the tray, Ned followed her out to speak with the guards before returning to sit down. "Why did you tell him?" Ned asked, his face sour and grimacing. "It was his right to know, was it not?" Jaime replied, his own expression serious. "Aye, but he's too young. He isn't ready to deal with such truths." "Is it he who isn't ready, or is it you?" "Neither of us are," Ned sighed. "You're wrong. He's more than ready to face them. He needed to confront these truths, or would you have him think the worst of himself until it was too late for him to ever let it go?" "I would have him safe," Ned said, his voice rising in anger. "Him or Robert?" Jaime retorted. "Robert is the king. Jon has no claim to his throne. For him to do so would only lead to war. Then so be it, if it's to be. Then let it be war, because if that man is left running this kingdom, it will fall apart." "What do you mean? How much was in the royal treasury when you took the capital, Ned?" "I can't remember," Ned replied evasively. "Well, I can. It was full, over 2 million gold dragons, not including the jewelry the royal family owned, none of which I've seen since." "What's your point?" Ned asked, shaking his head. "My point is that in the 10 years he's been king, your friend has not only emptied the treasury, but he has also borrowed 1 million gold dragons from my father. Not to mention another 600,000 from the Tyrells." "I can bet that's not all he's borrowed," Jaime said, and Ned sighed. Jon said something similar. "Of course he did." "Did he tell you about the tourney?" "Aye, a waste of coin." "Did he tell you what he did with the coin he won?" "No. He took the coin Robert wasted and spent it on food for the people of Flea Bottom, got the Tyrells to do the same. I even gave my own winnings to it. That's what Jon did. While your friend was feasting and whoring, Jon was helping those who needed it most." "I didn't know," Ned admitted, a small proud smile creeping onto his face. "Aye, you didn't. So tell me, Lord Stark, which one of them sounds like a true king?" "Robert won the throne." "Jon has no claim," Ned replied, shaking his head. "Who are you trying to convince, me or yourself?" "You seem to forget I was there, my lord. I remember it wasn't just the right of conquest that Robert claimed the throne by, was it?" "But that's what? That's not the point. It doesn't matter." "Oh, I agree with you there. Robert won't give up the throne to a grand council, he'll need to be dragged kicking and screaming from it." "So that's your plan? To start a war the realm doesn't need? Why are you so hungry for power, so eager to use a young boy for your own ambitions?" Ned said, anger rising in his voice. My ambitions," Jaime said, jumping to his feet. "You think I care about my ambitions? I only care about what Jon wants. Maybe you should do the same." He looked down at Ned, his expression fierce. "I do care," Ned replied. "All I want is what's good for Jon. Then be his uncle. Support him. Show him you care more about him than your friend." "I will not go to war again," Ned said, shaking his head with a sigh. War is coming, Lord Stark, whether you want it or not. And when it comes, you may not have a choice. So that's why you're doing what you're doing. Trying to gain the North's support without me? Trade deals, a marriage? You think my bannermen will support you even if I won't? Ned's voice rose with indignation. By the gods, you really are a fool, Stark. You think I'm so manipulative, so clever that I'm sitting in the background pulling Jon's strings? How has the North not fallen apart with you in charge? How dare you? Unlike you Lannisters, we Starks care about more than just gold and power. Oh, do you now? What was it Jon said? Yes. When the snows fall and the white winds blow, the lone wolf dies, but the pack survives. But you don't see Jon as part of the pack, do you? Certainly not as much as you do your fat friend. Jaime ducked the punch aimed at his head. He was about to retaliate but thought better of it. Instead, he looked at Stark, who seemed almost shocked by his actions, and shook his head. Just so you know, it was Jon who set up the trade deal with the Manderleys and the Mormonts, as well as the Umbers and Karstarks. It was Jon who came up with the ideas that have benefited the North, not me. This isn't some master plan, Stark. This is a boy who sees wrong and wants to make it right, who sees a chance to help and wants to. If that's not what makes a good king, then I don't know what does. It's too dangerous, Ned replied. It is. That's why he'll need his uncle's support, Jaime said, turning to leave the table but quickly pivoting back to face Ned. And if you ever raise your hand to my king again, Lord Stark, I promise you'll face the consequences, regardless of your relationship as his uncle. He locked eyes with Ned before finally turning and striding out of the room. As Loras entered the September, he noticed a woman kneeling before the statue of the mother. He almost turned to leave, but just then, the Septa walked in and began speaking to him. Lord Loras, it's good to see you here to renew your faith in the Seven, the Septa said, drawing the woman's attention. I've always been a loyal follower of the Seven, Septa, Loras replied. Yet you spend time with a bastard, Lady Catelyn interjected as she approached him. Jon's birth doesn't define him, my lady, he said politely, though frustration bubbled inside him. He is a bastard born of lust and sin, the Septa stated. Whose sin? Whose lust? Not his. All children are innocent in the eyes of the mother. Or does the seven-pointed star lie, Septa? Loras challenged, watching as both women glared at him. Bastards are lustful creatures, full of greed and desire, Lady Catelyn retorted. Really, my lady? Where does it say that? I've read the good book, and I can tell you it's not in there, Loras shot back. Everyone knows this, Lord Loras. Perhaps you're just bewitched by the bastard, the Septa replied, prompting Loras to laugh loudly. Do either of you even listen to yourselves? You both claim to be devout women, yet you insult the mother by blaming a child while saying nothing about the man who committed the sin. Why is that? Is it because he's trueborn? Everyone knows a trueborn is not the same as a bastard, Lady Catelyn scoffed. On that we can agree. And when it comes to Jon and those around here, never has a truer. Have you heard the word spoken, or did you miss him knocking two trueborns on their arses yesterday? Loras said with a smirk. He tricked them, used foul magic as all bastards are wont to do, Lady Catelyn replied, shaking her head. Loras frowned. You believe that just because your son is trueborn, it makes him good and true, my lady. Perhaps you should speak to your daughters and see how foolish that thinking is. He turned to walk away, trying to keep his temper in check. What are you talking about? What do my daughters have to do with this? Lady Catelyn asked, confusion etched on her face. Why do you think Jon took that spar, my lady? It wasn't because your son and his hostage friend goaded him to. Jon is far better than that. It was because he's a bastard and wished to harm my son and his friend, to show them up, to trick the North into thinking he's capable of rising above his station so he can usurp his betters, Lady Catelyn insisted, and Loras looked on, shocked. Was this woman truly that deluded? You think Jon wants the North, wants Winterfell? By the Seven, are you serious? Jon would never want that. Why would he? Loras replied incredulously. Because bastards seek what they do not have. They are covetous and never satisfied, the Septa interjected, and Lady Catelyn nodded in agreement. I don't know which of you two is more deluded, but Jon doesn't want nor need the North. Given what he's done, he could and will have so much more than that. Loras said, his frustration boiling over as he stormed away. I shall pray for you, Lord Loras, that you may see the light, Lady Catelyn called after him. Pray for your son, my lady. He needs it more than I do, Loras shot back. What do you mean? What are you and the bastard planning? She pressed. Planning? Gods, do you even listen to yourself? That spar yesterday happened because that iron-born hostage you all treat like a ward called your daughter a bitch, and your son, your precious true-born son, just stood there. He didn't defend her, he didn't say anything. He just stood there. It was Jon who stood up for her. Who defended her honor? Jon, who defended her very person. Loras watched as Catelyn's expression fell, her mouth dropping open in surprise. He didn't linger, though, he turned and walked out the door. Glancing around the yard, he noticed there was no sign of Jon or his sisters, Mira and Jojen. A few moments later, he spotted them outside the wolf's den. Have you seen Jon? He asked. Mira pointed toward the glass gardens. Loras made his way over and entered to find Jon sitting with his sisters. Jon had charcoal in his hand, speaking to them as he sketched something on parchment. Surrounding him were a collection of unfinished drawings, some impressive, others less so. Loras smiled as they noticed him. So, what are we doing? He asked. Jon's teaching us to draw, Sansa replied happily. Loras settled down to join them. Meanwhile, Catelyn had been praying to each of the seven for guidance. She prayed to the warrior for strength for her son, to the father for Ned to come to his senses, and to the smith, the crone, the maiden, and the mother. As she approached the last statue, she felt an inexplicable pull and knelt before it. She felt no shame as she prayed for the death of a 10-day-old boy. She believed she was doing what was right, protecting her family. It was her duty, her honor was at stake, and she would do everything in her power to keep her children safe from the bastard schemes. When she finished, she lit the candles and left. After what the Tyrell boy had said, she needed to see Ned. The moment she saw him with Jon, she realized how deeply the bastard had his hooks in him. To have him disrespect her so was more troubling than she had ever imagined. My lady, I shall pray a little longer, if you don't mind, Septa Mordain said. Catelyn smiled at the woman, always grateful for her support. No, that's quite all right, Septa, she replied, and continued on her way. As she walked past the sparring yard, she was surprised to find it empty. She had expected her son and ward to be practicing and had hoped to witness them finally giving that bastard the thrashing he deserved. How he had managed to beat them both the day before was a mystery to her. She had watched carefully, noting no tricks, yet there must have been something she missed. She had planned everything meticulously, spoken to Theon and her boy, and laid out exactly how to handle him. Yet somehow, it had all gone horribly wrong. He's walking around here as if he were the heir, Robb, not you. We can't let that stand, she declared. I know, Mother, Robb replied, his frustration evident. But he's been trained by the Kingslayer, my lady. What if he's too good? Theon asked, worry creeping into his voice. He is a bastard, Theon. You and Robb are trueborn sons, heirs to your family's legacies. I have no doubt you can put a bastard in his place, she said, her determination unwavering. But she had been proven wrong. After Jon had beaten Theon in the blink of an eye, she watched anxiously as he faced her son. She had begged Ned to stop it, pleading with him. She could see the look in Jon's eyes. It wouldn't be a quick match with Robb. What if he hurt him? What if he hurt him badly? No, she couldn't allow that. But her husband had been his usual useless self when it came to Jon, refusing to intervene, insisting it would look bad if Robb backed down. Better to look bad than to see her precious boy get hurt, she thought. Despite her pleas and demands, the spar had taken place. Thankfully, her prayers had been answered. Robb sustained no injuries. Still, she seethed at how that bastard had humiliated her trueborn son. Later that night, she sought out Robb and Theon once more. I don't understand it, Mother. How could he be that much better than I? Robb asked, devastated. Had you warmed up, my love? Had you gone through the exercises, sir? Roderick makes you do that? No, Mother. We saw him and just went for it, Robb replied. That's why, Robb. Remember what you told me about your training and how good you were getting? She smiled at him. I do. Yes, you're right, Mother. That must have been it. We'll do it again tomorrow, and I'll show Snow who the better swordsman is. But for some reason, Jon wasn't there, and neither was Theon. Concerned, she called a servant over to ask where her children were and felt a wave of distress when she learned her daughters were with the bastard in the glass gardens. That concern paled in comparison when she heard her boy was hurt. Ignoring how it looked, she lifted her skirts and ran toward the maester's tower. Mud splattered against her ankles, but she paid it no mind. She needed to be with her son. He would need his mother. When she reached the tower, she rushed up the stairs to find Jory and Harwin standing guard outside. Pushing past them, she nearly fainted at the sight of the maester examining her son. Robb's arms were covered in bruises, and a dark red mark marred his side, surely causing him pain. Across from him, Theon sat sullenly, bruised but not nearly as badly as her son. Robb, my boy, my poor sweet boy, she said, moving toward him. Lord Robb will be fine, my lady. Nothing is broken or seriously injured, just some bruising, Luwin assured her, but she glared at him angrily. Where is the bastard? I want him thrown in the dungeons. How dare he do this to my son? Catelyn exclaimed, while Robb lowered his head. My lady, as far as I'm aware, it wasn't Jon they were sparring with, Luwin explained. What? Theon, Robb, what happened? She demanded. It was Tyrell, my lady. We asked for a spar, and he went crazy, Theon said, glancing at Robb, who remained silent. Right, that's it. I've had enough of the bastard and his friends, Catelyn declared, storming out of the room. Jory glanced at Harwin and shook his head, but Catelyn was too focused on marching toward her husband's solar to notice. When she arrived, she didn't wait for Alan to open the door. She brushed past him and found Ned sitting at his desk, his head in his hands. I want them gone, Ned. All of them, the bastard, his friend, Lannister, every last one of them. They can have their damn wedding somewhere else. She shouted. What are you talking about, Cat? Are you crazy? We can't just cancel the wedding. My bannermen would never forgive me, and the realm would never forget a snub like that. Ned sighed. We have to do something. They hurt your son. Catelyn nearly screamed. Robb was beaten in a spar, and given what I've heard about him, he bloody well deserved it, Ned replied, and Catelyn looked at him in shock. What? How could you say that about our son? She said, her voice trembling with emotion. Our son has been behaving terribly, Cat. Did you know he stood by while Theon insulted Sansa? He just stood there and said nothing while that arrogant hostage disrespected my daughter. That's what our son did. Ned's voice grew louder. He wouldn't. There must be some mistake. It's the bastard, Ned. He's lying about our son. She insisted. Oh, And is it the bastard making our daughters say the same thing, Cat? No, I've heard enough. This morning is even more proof. Both of them insulted not only Lord Loras but Lord Jaime too. What are we teaching our son if he behaves this way? It's lies, Ned. It has to be lies. That's what they do, they lie and trick you into doing what they want, she said, shaking her head. Family, duty, honor, Cat, those are your house words, not mine. Yours. And our son won't stand up for family. As for doing his duty and behaving honorably, well, it's clear he's not doing that either. If we don't act now, the North will never follow him, Ned declared. What are you going to do, Ned? Catelyn asked, her frustration boiling over. I'm going to punish them both. Robb will be spending a lot more time with me. As for Theon, gods, if I have my way, that boy will know his place, I swear it. Catelyn's anger flared. What are you going to do about the bastard, Ned? What? Jon has done nothing wrong. We should be thanking him. Had this gone on any longer, gods, I fear what that would bring. She looked at her husband incredulously. He couldn't be serious. Her son, her trueborn son, was to be punished while the bastard was not? In a fit of rage, she stormed out of the solar and rushed back to her chambers. She needed to think. She needed to fix this. But how? How could she make it right? What could she do? Catelyn walked to the wardrobe and reached down to take out a small jewelry box where she kept her letters. Moving back to the bed, she unwrapped a small pile tied with a red and blue ribbon. Taking out the last one, she began to read, hoping to find the answers she sought within the words. My dearest Cat. I hope this letter finds you well, though the news I have to share will no doubt cause you concern. I dearly wish it were not so. I wish the news I shared with you would only ever bring you happiness and joy. But alas, that's not the way of life, and so instead, I must warn you of the danger you may find yourself and your family in. It has come to my attention that, along with the Lannisters, Jon Snow intends to take Winterfell from your son. After he tricked Edmure into a skewed duel, he was heard to brag about bringing the fishes down once and for all. I'm sorry to say he did so with no witnesses, my dearest one, for if he had, I could have brought it to Lord Arryn's attention and stopped him before he could set his plans into motion. He was then heard to brag that soon your son would be reviled in the north, leading to him being declared heir. I do not know what plans he has to dispose of young Brandon, but be wary. Cat, I'm sure he has some plans. I will continue to help in any way I can. Ask me for any service you wish, and if it's within my power to provide it, I shall. But be careful, Cat. I fear that your husband may not only be aware of these plans but could, in some way, be behind them. I remain, as always, your most loyal friend and servant. She placed the letter back with the others and closed the jewelry box. Getting off the bed, she returned the box to the base of the wardrobe and walked over to the desk, where she sat down. Reaching out, she grabbed a piece of parchment and some ink, beginning to write a letter to her friend. She needed his help more than ever. My dearest Peter, she wrote. Meanwhile, Jon brushed aside the small cuts and scrapes on his face, even though they had caused him a little concern. The cut on his lip hurt, but he waved that off too. At Jaime's request, he had gone to see Maester Luwin to have them looked at. The Maester simply applied some ointment, and that was all. Over the last couple of days, Jon had made sure that Ghost and his mother were well, which they were, and he also split his time between his siblings and friends. Young Bran had recovered from a slight cold that had kept him away, and Jon had tried to spend some time with the boy, playing with his toys and even taking him to see the wolves. He had finally received permission from his uncle to have Arya's bow made, and the look on her face when he gave it to her was one he would remember for a long time. Of course, now that she had a bow, a new challenge arose, training her. Jon did his best to find time for that. Sansa and he had grown even closer. His sister had a talent for drawing and seemed eager to explore it once she realized it. They mostly spent their time doing that. Jon found that Sansa loved nothing more than to draw pretty things, flowers, sunsets, and when Laura suggested how much she would love Highgarden, it sparked an idea in Jon. However, he needed to speak to his uncle about it, something that hadn't happened in several days. When they finally did see each other, their interactions were polite but brief. As for Robb and Theon, Jon didn't see much of them, aside from the occasional glare from Greyjoy. He had heard they'd been punished, and he was relieved to see they were being kept apart for now. Spotting Maester Luwin heading up to the tower, and noticing that he wasn't busy for once, Jon returned to his room. He grabbed his drawings of the wind wheels, the ice house, and the ice cart and chest he had designed. After locking his room and double-checking the lock, a precaution he had taken ever since he discovered scratches on it, he made his way up the tower to discuss his ideas with the maester. "Maester Luwin, may I come in?" Jon called, knocking at the open door. "Of course, Jon. Are those the drawings?" Luwin replied, a note of excitement in his voice. "Aye, they are, Maester. The wind wheels and some other ideas," Jon said, handing over the drawings. He watched as Luwin examined each drawing, taking notes in a small book. After a moment, the Maester looked back at him. "These are incredible, Jon. The materials, are they just metal and wood? Nothing rare or unique?" "No, Maester, they're simple enough to make. Once connected, the power is transferred using this," Jon explained, pointing to the connections on his drawings. "What uses have you found for them, Jon?" Luwin asked, intrigued. "We use them to drain the mines at Castamere, pumping the water out. I heard Lord Tyrion mention that some of the keeps in the Westerlands are using them to power the bellows, and one even uses them to open and close the gates. There's also a mill located within one of the keeps," Jon replied, and Luwin nodded thoughtfully. "And you have no problem if we use them here?" the Maester inquired. "Lord Tyrion sells them in the west and beyond, but the north is different, Maester. It's part of the agreement we have. If anyone wishes to make their own, we'll share the design. If they want to purchase them, we'll sell them at a discount," Jon explained. Luwin smiled. "I have some ideas I'd like to try out, Jon. If they work, I'd be happy to share them with you and Lord Tyrion later. Perhaps we could even sell those designs together, for the north, not for me." He chuckled. "As you say, Maester," Jon replied. "So, what are these?" Luwin asked, glancing at the other drawings Jon had. Jon began to explain the principle behind the ice trade. He described how, at Castle Black, he had observed the methods of food storage, which he realized Winterfell used as well. He showed Luwin the brick design employed at Castle Black, and Luwin was taken aback. "This is far more elaborate than our own, Jon. Do you think it holds the cold better?" he inquired. I do. The wall is much colder than here, Maester, but the stores are even colder than the wall itself. It's as if they keep the cold in for longer." "So, you intend to have southern houses build cellars like this?" Luwin asked. "Aye, but we need to transport the ice to them, which is where this comes in." Jon pointed to the drawings he had made for both the cart and a smaller chest. Luwin scratched his head as he read through Jon's notes. "Why the chest, Jon?" "I need to test if it works. Building a cart or fitting out the ships is costly. This I can do myself. I'll line a chest with the same bricks and see if the ice will hold. Do you want to help me try?" "Aye, very much so." For the next few hours, Jon gathered the materials to make the bricks, sawdust, and mud. Together, he and Luwin lined a chest before finding some ice to store inside. They lit a fire, placed the chest close to it, and waited. "Maester, why isn't Wintertown used to its fullest?" Jon asked while enjoying his lunch in the Maester's chambers. "As you know, Jon, during the summer, people move away, and it's only filled when winter comes. But that's a waste of a town, maester. How many people would you say live there now? About 3,000 or so. And in winter? About 5 to 6 times that. Winterfell receives taxes on goods sold there, Jon noted. Right? Jon asked, taking a sip of his water. Aye. So the more people there, the better. I don't follow, Jon. Well, if it was built up, if coin was spent to make it a larger, better town, you could attract more people. With more people, there would be more trade, and the more work that gets done, the more everyone, including Winterfell, would benefit. That's true, Jon, but it would cost a lot of coin to do so. Perhaps those in the north would prefer to stay on their farms during the summer, Lewin replied, shaking his head. Perhaps, but there are plenty of people in the south who'd jump at the chance for a better life. In Flea Bottom alone, many would love the opportunity to be somewhere safe. Even if that's not feasible right now, if you build the place up, if you turn it into a city, people will come. You should speak to your father about this, Jon. I don't think he'd listen to me, maester. What about you? You want me to suggest this to Lord Stark? Lewin asked, and Jon nodded eagerly. Maester, how much coin do you think it would cost to rebuild or expand Wintertown? I don't know, Jon. To get started, maybe 20,000? To finish, perhaps 100,000 gold dragons? And how much does Winterfell collect in taxes from it now? Jon watched as Lewin walked to the shelves, retrieving a book and scribbling some notes. Around 8,000 gold dragons a year, Jon. So, if we consider 6 times that number, we're looking at almost 50,000 a year. And that's just based on those figures, not including the extra taxes from the building work or the additional trade. Even on the low end, it'd pay for itself in 2 years, maester. Jon exclaimed, excitement lighting up his voice. Aye, it would. I'll need to think on this some more, Jon. Come, let's check the chest. They walked over and opened the chest. Although the ice had melted a bit, it had held most of its shape. Considering it was right beside the fire and this was only their first attempt, both were pleased with the results. Lewin couldn't help but smile at Jon, who grabbed the drawings and began to scribble some notes. After finishing his notes, Jaime bid farewell to the maester and made his way to the Great Hall, stopping briefly to drop off the drawings in his room. They had been in Winterfell for more than a week, and Jaime was feeling both bored and annoyed. Stark had barely spoken to him since their encounter in the Solar, and despite training every day with Jon and Loras, there wasn't much to do. The previous day, he had gone riding with Jon and Loras, and just being out in the open had made the day pass much quicker. But for some reason, the nights seemed to stretch on endlessly. Both Jon and Loras had teased him about missing his betrothed, which was certainly true. It would be another couple of weeks before Daisy and her family arrived, and Jaime felt at a loss for how to spend his time until then. Thankfully, today promised some excitement, as several northern lords were expected to arrive. He hadn't been informed of their names, only that they would be here soon. Jon had polished his armor, and his cloak had been cleaned, since he would need to greet the guests personally for his wedding. Are you ready, my lord? Jon asked as he and Loras walked into Jaime's room. Aye, any idea who's coming? Jaime replied. I believe it's Lords Manderley and Glover, Jon answered. Glover? Jaime asked, intrigued. Aye, my lord. Deepwood Motte is the Mormont's nearest house, Jon explained. And the lords? Jaime pressed. Lord Galbart is unmarried, my lord. Lord Robert is his brother and heir. He recently married Lady Sibel Locke, Jon added, while Loras shook his head in disbelief. How did you know all that? Loras asked. I read and asked Lewin. It's better for Lord Jaime to know this stuff if he needs it, Jon replied. Aye, it would be. Lucky for me, I have squires to do such things, Jaime joked, eliciting a laugh from Loras. Once they were ready, the three made their way to the courtyard to line up and prepare to meet the lords. The Starks were already lined up and ready, and Jaime smiled at Jon's sisters, the youngest looking particularly excited. Jaime shifted uncomfortably in his dress clothes. He nodded to Ned and gave a small bow to Lady Catelyn, whose forced smile almost made him chuckle. Ever since Loras had humbled Robb and the Greyjoy, she had been wearing the same expression, and Jaime had to admit he enjoyed seeing her struggle to hold her tongue. The two boys in question had been kept apart for the last few days, and the look the Ironborn directed at his two squires would have caused him concern if he hadn't seen him cower from Ghost. As for the White Wolf, he had rarely been seen, preferring to stay close to his mother, who seemed ready to give birth any day now. Jon and Loras stood on either side of him, and as the procession began, Jaime felt a surge of relief upon seeing the Manderley sigil flying high. He was even happier to see Ser Wylis leading them in. "Lord Glover," Jon whispered from beside him, as he pointed out two large men guiding a covered carriage, followed closely by a large sled. "My lords, welcome to Winterfell," Stark said, as the two Glovers approached. One of them held the hand of a small, delicate-looking lady who Jaime hadn't seen emerge from the carriage. "Lord Stark," the larger man said, while the other introduced his wife. Jaime watched in surprise as the Lord of White Harbor and his two granddaughters stepped down from the sled, prompting a chuckle from Loras. "Looks like someone came to dance, Jon," Loras whispered, and Jaime couldn't help but grin. "Lord Lannister," the gruff Glover lord said, and Jaime was grateful that Jon had briefed him about them. "Lord Galbart, it's an honor," Jaime replied, noting the man's surprise before he nodded in acknowledgement. "Lord Lannister, may I present my wife, Lady Glover," the other man said. "Lord Robett, Lady Sabelle, truly a pleasure," Jaime said, and he noticed the same surprised look on the man's face, while the lady smiled warmly. The introductions continued for a while, and Jaime couldn't help but notice the slightly awkward demeanor of both Lord Manderleys. The granddaughters greeted Lord Stark and Lady Catelyn warmly, although they were notably friendlier with Robb. Their greetings to both girls, as well as to Jon and Loras, were quite distinct. It was also clear they were intentionally ignoring the Greyjoy. When Ser Wylis and Lord Wyman approached, they too offered a slightly warmer reception, but it was Lord Wyman's greeting of Jon that truly caught Lady Stark's attention. "Jon, my boy, it's so good to see you again. I've been meaning to speak with you for a while," Wyman said, delivering the friendliest greeting anyone had received all day. "It's good to see you too, my lord," Jon replied with a smile. Jaime noticed Lord Wyman scrutinize Jon for a moment before nodding at him. He would have pondered the significance of that look, but Lord Stark quickly had servants lead everyone to their quarters, while Lady Stark insisted that Robb take the Manderley girls to theirs. Both girls, however, insisted that Jon and Loras join them, and Jon made sure his sisters came along as well. Sansa was excitedly chatting with the older Manderley girl. Once the greetings concluded, Jaime caught up with Ser Wylis. The two men shared a few laughs, with Wylis teasing Jaime before congratulating him on his upcoming wedding. Afterward, Wylis headed off to settle into his room. The rest of the day dragged on, though Jaime found himself looking forward to the evening meal. While it wasn't a feast, it promised to be a larger affair than usual. He had expected either Jon or Loras to come to his room so they could go together, but for some reason, they hadn't. After waiting for a while, he decided to walk to the hall. As he entered, he was struck by a strange atmosphere. Scanning the room, he soon discovered the cause. At the head table sat Lord Stark, Lady Catelyn, and Lords Manderley and Glover. To the left, the children were gathered. Sansa and Arya both wore scowls, as did the Manderley girls, but Jon and Loras were nowhere to be seen. As he looked around, he finally spotted them seated at a table in the corner. At the back of the hall, Jaime approached the high table, his voice cutting through the murmur of conversation. "What is the meaning of this, Lord Stark?" he asked, striding forward. "My lord?" Ned replied, shifting uncomfortably in his seat. "My squires, why are they placed as they are? Lord Loras chose to sit there, my lord, Ned explained. And Jon? Jaime inquired, a hint of skepticism in his tone. My lord, it's not proper for Jon to sit at a higher table given his status, Lady Catelyn interjected, a half-smile on her face. Indeed, it's not proper for someone who has done so much for the North to be given a place of honor, is it? Jaime said, his anger rising. My lord, my lady wife only means to say that given Jon's birth, it wouldn't be proper, Ned stumbled through his words. Ah, my mistake, my lord, Jaime replied, turning away and taking a seat beside Jon and Loras as the room fell silent. As a knight, I shall take my meals with my squires, my lord, since propriety seems so important to you, Jaime announced loudly, casting a glare at Lord Stark, then at Lady Catelyn. My lord, you shouldn't, Jon said, shaking his head. No, Jon, they shouldn't, Jaime responded, Loras nodding in agreement. If the atmosphere had been tense before, it shifted to a more jovial tone after Jaime's arrival. However, during the meal itself, Jaime, Jon, and Loras barely touched their food, while conversation at the high table remained stilted. Lord Wyman, in particular, sat in silence, the disapproval on his face evident every time he glanced at the Starks. When Jaime looked over to the children's table, he noticed Jon's sisters practically ready to leap from their seats, but they waited until the meal was finished. As soon as the tables began to shift, they sprang into action. They weren't alone, both Manderley girls joined them, leaving Robb sitting alone. Before long, he too got up and walked over to join them. Is it all right if I join you? He asked, looking at Jon. Of course it is, brother, Jon replied, a soft smile lighting his face. As for Walder, his thoughts lingered on his grandmother, who was ill, and he knew he had to keep that in mind. Even the maester couldn't help her. To anyone who looked at her, she appeared just fine. She moved as she always did, but Walder could sense that something was off. Each night, when he tucked her into bed, she would kiss his cheek and offer him a warm smile. Tonight, though, was different. Tonight, she asked him to fetch Lord Stark for her, and he did as she requested. He walked through the keep, and when he reached the Lord Solar, he nodded to Alan, who informed Lord Stark of his presence. Send him in, he heard Lord Stark's voice call out. Hodder, I'm sorry, Walder. How may I help? My lord, my grandmother wishes to see you. Can it wait, Walder? I'm very busy. I don't believe so, my lord. I think she's very ill. Has Lewin seen her? Lord Stark asked, concern creeping into his tone. My lord, but it's you she wishes to speak to. Very well, I'll join you in a moment. Walder waited outside, and a few moments later, he and Lord Stark made their way to his grandmother's room. As they entered, Walder noticed Lord Stark stumble slightly at the sight of how tired and frail his grandmother had become. Walder, fetch the pup. Bring him when Lord Stark leaves. Ned, we must speak, and we must speak now, his grandmother said firmly. Walder nodded and went to fulfill her request. He found Jon where he had been for the last 2 nights, in the broken tower with the 2 wolves. He could feel it, the wolves would soon be born. Jon, my grandmother wishes to see you. I think it's almost her time, Walder said, sadness in his voice. Are you sure? Jon asked, concern etching his features. I think so, Walder replied, and Jon stood up, patting him on the side. They walked slowly to her room, and Walder felt as frightened as he had been while trapped in that cave. Despite everything he had faced, the knowledge that she was there had always brought him comfort. The thought that she might not be for much longer terrified him. What would he do without her? Is there any way to guide him, to help him? They watched as Lord Stark almost raced out of the keep. He glanced at Jon, wondering if they should follow, but Jon shook his head. Instead, they made their way to his grandmother. Come, pup, we must speak. You too, Walder, she said, her voice barely a whisper. Grandmother, Walder said as tears began to fall. Do not be afraid, for I am not. I go to my mother, to my sister, to see my daughter and Duncan again. I am happy, content, my boy, but I'm not done just yet. Listen carefully, Jon Snow. The future is unwritten, undetermined, but there are certain things set in stone. One of those is your destiny. Remember what you saw in the caves, both of them. Remember and prepare. Beware the crows, Jon Snow, for they are his, and he is not on your side. Now, I must ask you a favor, for you are the only family we have left. Anything. Ask me anything, Jon said, looking at his grandmother. Look after my boy, Jon Snow. Take him with you, give him a place, a purpose. Let him be who he was meant to be, who his grandfather was. Give him a cloak of white, put a sword in his hand, and watch him become what he was born to be. I will. I swear it by the old gods and the new, I will, Jon promised, and Walder noticed his own tears falling too. Now go, Jon Snow. The wolves are returning. You will know what to do. Go and leave me to say goodbye, she said. Jon nodded, stood up, and leaned forward to kiss his grandmother's cheek, then gently patted her shoulder. Once he had left, Walder leaned forward and embraced her, feeling her arms wrap around him for what could be the last time. He sobbed, and she hushed him as she had done for many years. He felt her hand rub his back, calming him in a way only she ever could. Listen carefully. You must protect him, Walder, from those who would seek him harm. You must protect him, or the world of the living will fall. I'm sorry I kept you here. This was not the life you should have had, but with him, you can be who you were meant to be. I love you. Remember that always. I have always loved you, from your first breath until my last. I love you too. Goodbye, my boy. He heard the whispered words as she closed her eyes. The howling was loud and fierce, and though his heart was breaking, he felt a flicker of joy. The wolves had returned.